Welcome to the Berry-Tramel Show. TCU coach Sonny Dykes joins us today. And Sonny, this is a crazy time in college football, for crying out loud. You guys go to the national championship game in 22. You fall back in 23, come back some this year in 24. You play Oklahoma State. Cowboys riding high a year ago. Now they're in last place. Can you make sense of all? Is this what we're in for in college football these days? Just up and down and no really way to know what's going to happen?
I think so, Barry. I think it's kind of, you look around right now and Michigan played for a national championship and they're struggling. Washington played for a national championship last year and they're struggling. Florida State was 12-0. I think they're 1-9. It's just, you can have a good roster one year like we did in 22. We inherited some good players. We added some good players from the transfer portal, and then we got wiped out. We had a bunch of players that declared early for the NFL draft, and then all of a sudden, we didn't have much of that team left over last year, and it was kind of starting over again. And this year's team, I think we're better. We've lost a couple of tough ball games on the last play of the game, two of them. But it's just kind of every year is a new year within it into itself, and there's not a lot of carryover from one year to the next, and it's just the way college football is now with the transfer portal and NIL and all the things that make it very unique and also make it, really difficult to have any kind of sustained success in some ways.
Now, for some, it's fun. I mean, the games are great. I mean, I looked at the Big 12 schedule this week. Your game is the only game with more than a 5-point spread. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Is it frustrating to coaches, though, who like to build programs, who like to sustain rosters, who like to be able to build for the future?
I mean, it's certainly different. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different. I think that's kind of has always been one of the reasons we've had success at places I've been in the past. I felt like we spent a lot of time, paid a lot of attention to managing the roster and making sure that things were set up for the future, and now it's just a different team every single year, and so it does feel like you're almost starting over every single year. You have your players that graduate, and then you have your guys from the portal, that go into the portal, and then you add new players, and you hope it works, you hope it gels, you hope everything falls into place like it did for us in 22, and then sometimes it doesn't, and what's happened to us is we were 7-1 in one-score games that year. And since then, we haven't been very good in those one-score games. And so it's a challenge. You do look around the Big 12. I mean, we played, five games in a row, or excuse me, 5 out of 6 games, I believe, were just like you said, one score ball games from a point spread perspective. And so it's just every single week is going to be challenging. All the lines are 2 or 3 points, and it's the teams are very evenly matched. And so really what it comes down to is, who plays the best football, who plays the cleanest, who doesn't turn the ball over, which team is really motivated to play, and which team catches a couple of breaks.
When you look at this new age of college athletics, we see in basketball that some coaches are saying, you know what, I just don't want to do it anymore. Jay Wright, Tony Bennett, Mike Bray, maybe Mike Krzyzewski. In football, so far it appears that Nick Saban may be the only one we know that sort of said, I don't want to do this anymore. But do you see more college coaches on the football level maybe getting there? Or do you see most of the veterans saying, I still like doing this, let's stick it out?
Yeah, I know. Just talking to some of my peers, I think there's some frustration, and some guys that have been doing it for a long time and have been really, really successful that don't want to kind of ruin a legacy in some ways because they've won a lot of games and they've been very successful at these programs for a long time, and they've managed the roster the right way and they've done things that have allowed them to be successful consistently. And I think those guys, in some cases, are a little bit frustrated. But it's just the way the game is now. I mean, Barry, you know how it is. I mean, you have to adapt, or you just get eaten alive. And so it seems like for the last 5 or 6 years, that's kind of been what's happening. There was signs of this starting to happen when players started to transfer more often, even before there was a transfer portal. And we certainly used that to our advantage when I was at SMU. We had a lot of DFW kids that left that wanted to come back and play in front of friends and family. And so we were kind of ahead of the portal by a couple of years, and it helped us rebuild the program pretty quickly there. And so you had to manage that. Well, then all of a sudden, you know, everybody can do that. Now there's unlimited transfers, and then you have to deal with that, and then there's NIL on top of that, and so it's been challenging. But you do have to. Our job is to always figure out how to make it work for our program, and I think you have to find a niche, and you have to figure out what your school is unique, and you have to have some kind of unique approach that makes you different and gives you a chance to be successful.
Of course, this up and down nature that we've been talking about, we've seen some of that in season. I mean, you guys did not have a great start to the 24 season. The loss to SMU, the heartbreaker to UCF. Meanwhile, OSU's riding high. They come back, beat Arkansas. Everything's great. Haven't won since. You've rebounded. Done a nice job in the conference. Much better team than you were in September. What is that a byproduct, or is that just something we've always had in college football, where in season a team might go up and down pretty severely?
Well, I do think that's something that's been around, but I think it's more pronounced now. I do believe that uh, teams can probably improve a little bit more. And with us early, we were just beating ourselves week in and week out. We had 5 turnovers against SMU. We turned the ball over 4 times against Houston. I mean, we had some really bad games where we just didn't give ourselves an opportunity at all to win the football game, no matter who we were playing. And so, we've gotten a little bit better since then. Our quarterback's gotten a little bit more experience. He's doing a much better job taking care of the football. I think we're more settled into, what do we have? What are the strengths of our team? All that kind of thing. And so, it does vacillate probably more than it used to, just because, there are some teams that, get on a little bit of a run early, have some success, and then maybe lose a game or two. And all of a sudden you have a lot of guys that haven't been in your program, maybe that really don't understand the culture, or maybe not bought into the culture. And so all of a sudden things can turn pretty bad pretty quickly if you're not careful. And again, that kind of seems to be a byproduct of the transfer portal and what's going on.
Well, let me ask you about the Cowboys coming to Fort Worth on Saturday night. 6 in a row they've lost. This is sort of new territory. Mike Gundy's had a really consistent program for all these many years. What do you see in Oklahoma State that's gone sideways for the Cowboys?
Well, let me just say this about Mike. First of all, I mean, I think they've been bowl eligible, if I'm not mistaken, now 18 straight years, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, that's a remarkable thing to accomplish in college football. To do it and being, as long as he has, at the level that he's done it, and to be that consistent for that long. I mean, not many people have done that. There's very few people that say that they've had that kind of sustained success at a program. So I've always had a lot of respect for Mike and the job that he's done there. It's been really fun to watch. I mean, he's really done an incredible job. They look like a very good football team early in the year, and it just seems like they've had some bad things happen to them. I know they've had some injuries. It just seems like, when you turn the film on, you still see a lot of really good football players. When you see a team that is capable of playing really, really good football. They're a very dangerous football team. I think that they're probably capable of beating anybody in the league. It's just, they just haven't quite put together some games. And you see moments in games where you go, my gosh, this football team is really, really good. And then, for whatever reason, they hadn't been able to sustain it. And so it's a very talented football team, a good football team. They're elite at running back. They're elite at wide receiver. They've got a lot of returning offensive linemen back on a team that was very successful last year. I think they've had some injuries defensively that have probably hurt them a little bit, but they're very big up front. A lot of guys on the back end that can run, very productive linebackers. I mean, just a very solid football team, and they're good on special teams. And so you look at it all and you go, well, I don't really understand, but they're good and very, very capable.
Of course, you've talked a little bit about the Horned Frogs, particularly quarterback Josh Hoover. What else do you like about this TCU team?
Well, honestly, my favorite thing about this group is the guys like each other. Yeah, I mean, they like each other. They care about each other. They're invested in each other. They love playing for TCU. It's truly one of my favorite teams I've ever coached, just from a personality standpoint, and the guys are bought in. And as I said, we've lost a couple of tough games, and we've not played well at times, and then other times we've played pretty well, which again kind of seems to be the way things are in college football these days. But I love the fact that our guys show up and they work hard every day. I love the fact that, as I said earlier, man, they're playing for TCU, and they're playing for each other, and they play hard. I think that we can throw and catch pretty well. I think Josh is one of the more accurate quarterbacks I've been around. I think he's starting to come into his own and get more comfortable every single week and take better care of the football. Love the wide receiver group. Jack Besh and Savion Williams and JP Richardson, and there's a bunch of guys on there that are just love to play football. They're great guys, blue collar guys. Eric McAllister. I think we're young right now defensively, but I love some of the young players and the way that they're improving and getting better. And it's a competitive group and a group that takes a lot of pride in playing for TCU.
Of course, this is year one of the 16-team Big 12. It's a crazy conference, Sonny. You know that as good as anybody. Half the league was not in the conference 16 months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
West Virginia and TCU are among the old timers now. How do you feel like this first year of the 16-team Big 12 has gone?
Well, it's certainly been different. What I liked about the league when I came over here was that everybody it was a 10-team league and everybody played each other. And so, to me, you always really found out who the best team was, because you had to go through the schedule and you had to beat everybody. When you get a big league, like I've been in some in the past, you can almost at times look and see who plays the best schedule. And I know when I was in the American at SMU, you could almost predict who was going to win the league based on, scheduling. And, I think that was one of the special and unique things about the Big 12 is, everybody had the same schedule. Everybody played each other. So that part's a little bit complicated and probably takes away a little bit from the league, I think, in some ways, but also understand that there's strength in numbers. And the leagues are adding members now. They're trying to ensure that they're going to be strong and that they're going to have enough teams to be able to hold together. And so I understand how it makes sense, but I think in some ways it does affect the league and the scheduling and the quality of opponents that you play week in and week out.
2 years ago, of course, you guys had the great run, 12-0 season. You go to the Big 12 championship game, lose that overtime classic to K-State. You went into that game ranked third by the playoff committee.
Yep.
You came out of that game still number 3. I thought that was a great sign of respect for TCU and for the Big 12. Last night, Tuesday night, we get the initial rankings, and not great respect for the Big 12. BYU is unbeaten, has a couple of excellent wins, and is down at number 9. Iowa State, K-State down closer to number 20. Were you a little alarmed when you saw the initial playoff rankings last night?
You know what, Barry, honestly, I didn't see it. I didn't really pay attention to it. I think there's plenty of time for that stuff to sort itself out. The year that we were 12-0, we still had to go play Texas, and everybody said, we're going to find out that TCU is not a real team when they have to go to Austin and play Texas, and all the stuff. And so for us, we didn't pay much attention to it then. When the first rankings came out, we were pretty far down the road. And then I think it's like anything else, we earned a certain level of respect. We won games and we went to Texas and beat those guys, and we did the things that we had to do to get through the season unbeaten, and played a really close, good, tough ball game against Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. But I was really proud of the fact that we weren't punished for losing our conference championship game, which I think is the right way to treat these things. And so, to me, there's a lot of stuff that still has to be played out. I think the Big 12, when it's all said and done, is going to be well represented in the playoff. At least that's my hope, and I think it's deserved. But it's early, so I think we'll kind of see how it plays out and see what happens. But I think there's some good football teams in the Big 12. There really is, and I think the league is very, very difficult to get through unbeaten because there's just a lot of quality teams. Anybody can beat anybody. You saw that last week, where Texas Tech goes to Iowa State. I think they're a 15.5 point underdog and they win. Then Kansas State goes to Houston and gets beat by Houston, who was a 17 point underdog. And so those kind of things don't happen in a lot of other leagues at the level that they happen in the Big 12. And I think it just shows that there's so much depth in the league and so many good teams that are capable of beating each other.
Well, Sonny, we sure appreciate this. I know it's a busy week for you. Appreciate you taking the time. Good luck to the Horned Frogs on Saturday night, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Barry. Always good to see you, man. Appreciate what you do for college football, and look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Okay, thanks, Sonny.
Okay.
Sonny Dykes. Stay tuned for the berry-tramel Show. We'll have more college football next week here on the TulsaWorld.com and every day in the Tulsa World.